Hello again, I am Blunty. Yesterday I popped up a video breaking down the very best advice I can possibly think of for new players coming to Monster Hunter for the first time with Wilds. And if you are a Monster Hunter veteran, I'd love it if you popped over there to drop your own hints in the comments for the newbies. I mean, if you think about it, you'll only be helping yourself, right? You know, for when these people show up in SOS hunts. So even if you don't care about helping newbies, hey, do it for selfish reasons, right? In any case, today I want to flip that entirely over and talk to my fellow highly experienced hunters. Many of us have such deep passion for the game, we have hundreds if not thousands of hours in individual titles alone. So we're coming into Wilds with a lot of stored knowledge and a steely-eyed hunter's determination and an already refined set of skills and tactics. And on the one hand, that means we're going to look and feel like absolute badasses, methodically and utterly dismantling monsters as we burn through at least the opening hours of the game. On the downside, that can potentially lead to the impression the game is quote-unquote too easy, less interesting and less engaging. All for the lack of challenge. We're breezing through low rank, not feeling forced to adapt and overcome, which I think for many of us was and is part of the fun of the journey. So here I wanted to suggest a few ideas to help make that early game experience feel a bit more engaging again. I mean, of course, there's no way we can ever truly relive what our very first Monster Hunter was like, but I think there's ways we can increase the challenge in organic feeling ways that don't necessarily feel, too forced or awkward or weird, or start chipping away at immersion or break the intended flow of the game. Of course, I'm talking challenge rule sets, self-imposed restrictions to increase the difficulty of the game. And while this is an artificial structure, sure, it is also our first time through the game, so I feel like choosing a challenge rule set carefully that maintains as much of the natural flow of the game as possible is very important. I'm sure we've all seen the goofy gimmick challenge runs some people do. Can you beat Monster Hunter World using only kunai, or only slinger ammo, or only starter gear, or, whatever. Highly artificial and highly forced restrictions. And that stuff is fun to stretch out the challenge of the game if you've already beaten it 2 or 3 times in less extreme ways, or at least watch someone else do it. I've certainly watched a bunch of that kind of stuff. But that extreme approach is obviously just the wrong way to go for our first time through a brand new Monster Hunter. It'll far too vastly alter the vanilla experience of fighting all these new and returning monsters with their updated movesets for the very first time. So, I know I'm going on a bit, but I really want to establish what the point here is. I want to suggest a few ideas for challenge rule sets that should maintain a more natural flow of the game, keeping immersion, but also increasing the challenge, and slow down what might otherwise be a fast burn through at least the low-rank stuff. Rules that let us soak into the game more thoroughly and get more out of it. So let's dig in. Rule set 1. The Fashion First Run. As far as I know, this one is my own idea. At least I didn't see anyone else doing it or anything like it when I was putting the rules together for the first time a few years back. The idea is simple, but it did present some extra challenge and certainly made the low rank progress a lot more methodical and stopped the fast burn through it. And because this was a challenge I live streamed, I even have a graphic for this one still sitting around. The concept is simple. The first priority is fashion. You know how we all love the endgame fashion run with layered armor sets and all that sort of stuff? Well, that's where we're starting this time, except without layered. That means a full and matched armor set only at all times, and matching the weapon if you can. Not all monsters have weapon options for every type, so in that instance you go for a non-monster specific choice, like the iron or bone trees or something. And of course, looking fashionable means not ruining the lines of your outfit, so no overstuffing your pockets. We can only take half a stack of any given item, and no guild box items. Now, considering that Wilds has the Sacred Pouch, not a guild box, this rule set might need a little tweaking or adjusting. Make your own choices there. And this rule set was originally for Rise, so we did the easier village quests only once each, and any grinding for the extra parts we needed had to be done in the more difficult hub quests. Again, for Wilds, it seems like hunts aren't quite broken up this way, so this might need some adjusting. So maybe for the grinding bit, you only choose higher star-ranked monsters to grind, because we do know that's a thing, obviously. Core to the challenge, you can't move on from a monster until you have crafted its full set of armor, and its weapon, if applicable, to progress with. And you fight each and every monster in the order it's presented to you. So, once you're done with one monster, you wear its full set to fight the next monster. And of course, you must craft the full set before equipping it. No mixed sets. So this rule set has you repeatedly fighting each monster until you get enough parts to craft everything, and that alone slows you down. The nature of the rules also mean it's probably going to be too expensive and, frankly, kind of pointless to keep upgrading each set for extra defense as you go, so that too increases challenge. And of course, it sometimes means a very poor matchup on elemental resistances and certainly elemental weapons, and issues maintaining sharpness even. So, it maintains immersion, it increases challenge, presents unexpected issues, and gently slows down your progress. And you get to look cool and not like someone who fell through the photo booth costume box at a party while doing it. And it did work quite nicely as a challenge rule set. I'm carefully considering returning to this one myself in Wilds. Rule set 2, the Nude Run. A somewhat more traditional rule set, or at least more common. It has just one rule. You don't wear any armor at all. So you get no extra defense, you get no armor skills. It's a simple rule for a simple result. You are just more fragile. It is a test of skill and determination. There's a lot of runs out there from content creators in various games using this one rule set again, and not just monster games of course, but all types of games that have equipable armor, but usually only ever after beating the game several times over to begin with. And I'd not necessarily suggest running this rule set for the whole game of Wilds, certainly not the first time through of course, but it might be a fun way to at least play the opening hours just to boost the challenge. So maybe you do it for all of low rank, maybe you just do it until you face the first alpha. Make your own choices there. Rule set number 3, the Armor of Shame. This is a variation of rule set 2, and I came up with this one myself during the final session of beta 2, just to help mix things up because I played a lot of the beta and I felt like I wanted something extra. It starts out as a nude run, but every time you get carted, you must equip one piece of armor to mark your shame and your failure. The goal is simply to see how far you can go before you are in a full set of armor head to toe. So it's kind of a mini challenge of sorts. And the interesting addition to this one is you can compete with your friends over it. You can all do this challenge together and see who can last the longest without equipping a full set of shame. It was pretty fun when I tried it. Certainly it makes the panic a bit more palpable when you take any damage. It naturally changes up your play style a bit because you start playing a bit more defensively, especially if you're like me and you have a tendency to overcommit or actively choose to trade damage with the monster sometimes. That becomes a lot more dangerous in this rule set. It's not a huge change, it is a very simple rule set, but I found it's just enough to spice up the early game just a little bit. Rule set number 4. No upgrades. This one's pretty straightforward too, a little more gentle than the last couple of rule sets, but still will present an increasing level of challenge as you go through the early game. And it's super simple. Base level gear only, no upgrading. So whatever level of defense any given armor piece has when it is crafted is what you are stuck with. This will have you crafting new pieces just for the defense boost alone, and trying to find balances between the armor skills that you want and the native defense that that part might offer. It's a rule set you can do, again, just for low rank, or try and carry it through the whole game, but again, just for the sake of the first playthrough, I'd probably suggest low rank only. So you have your extra challenge without affecting the feel of the whole game to an extent that might interfere with the intended experience a little bit too much for some people's tastes. You could also try working with base level weapons only, but that might get more annoying than genuinely challenging once sharpness and bouncing becomes a larger issue. I speak from experience on that particular one. I have tried that. It's not impossible, but it's certainly more frustrating than fun, in my opinion. Rule set number 5, the no meta skills run. This is the most recent challenge I came up with and played through for streams, and this one's a little less about increasing the challenge in larger ways at least, and more about simply shaking up your approach and snapping off old habits to basically quirk up how you usually play and build armor sets. Again, the concept is simple. You simply don't use the common meta style armor skills most everybody uses. So that means no attack boost, no defense boost, no agitator, no critical eye, no guard up, no part breaker, slugger. You know the kinds of stuff we're talking about here. Instead, focus on the more oddball and specialist skills. Maybe just pick a few of them. In my case, when I ran this rule, I chose Mushroom Mancer for my final run through Rise and Sunbreak before Wilds arrives. And up until this challenge, I had never used Mushroommancer before. And to really lean into it, I chose to only use Mushroommancer related skills for healing, for status recovery, and stat boost. Like, mushrooms were the only consumables I was using. Or at the very least for the stuff that there wasn't a practical mushroom option for. There was 1 or 2 exceptions to that. But almost exclusively, it was just mushrooms I was shoving into my face. And I leaned fully into wide range alongside that, aiming to max it out alongside Mushroommancer, because I hardly ever focus on that kind of team support, frankly. Seriously, I am so very crap at keeping an eye on my teammates' health bars and using stuff like life powder. But playing a wide ranger Mushroommancer felt really engaging and fun, and it did change up completely how I farmed items, how I played through the game. It heavily restricted my armor choices, of course, so it restricted what other skills I could pair up with them, and frankly, it made me a better teammate. Oh, I have played heavy support-focused specific builds before. I had an epically powerful hunting horn build in base Rise that I called the Whambulance, because, you know, you wham things with the hunting horn, and also it was medical, so ambulance, Whambulance. I'll be honest with you, I came up with the idea for the name before I built the set. But it was a bunch of fun. But that's pretty much the only time I've ever specialized in support stuff. But there was something super special about wide range Mushroommancer that I really, really enjoyed. And point is, of course, deliberately going all in on armor skills I'd never bothered with, even trying out before, and most people don't. It was a really interesting and fun way to change up how I approached building an armor set, and tweaked my whole approach to battle both solo and in multiplayer. I was earnestly surprised just how much I enjoyed that one. I think I'm going to do it again. Probably not for my first go. At the very least, I'll be building another Mushroommancer set in late game Wilds. So that particular rule set has had a very lasting effect on me. Rule set number 6. Weapon Roulette. Another one I've done for streams, and another one that presents interesting challenges without screwing with immersion or forcing you to do unnatural things like ignore particular game mechanics like no clutch claw runs and you know. And again, the name really should speak for itself. Basically, for each individual hunt you go on, you roll a random weapon. I did the RNG stuff using a chatbot, because I streamed this challenge, but there's plenty of other ways too. Those websites that let you make your own spin that wheel thing, there's plenty of those around, or you can do it physically. You can get yourself a dice. 14-sided dice are slightly harder to come by than some others, but ask your favorite tabletop gamer where you can get a D14 die, and they'll hook you up. In any case, being forced into random weapons for each and every separate hunt creates its own obvious challenges, especially if you're unfamiliar with, or just kind of crap, at one or more of the choices. For me, when I did this challenge in World, it was the Lance that caused me the biggest issues. Whenever I rolled Lance, I was like, oh no, especially when I rolled the damn thing when I had to go against friggin' Kushala Daora. Oof. But a side effect of this challenge also means you are maintaining an armor set with very, very general armor skills, so it can apply to as many different weapon choices as possible. So that too affects your choices and how you play the game. It also means you're unlikely to be able to maintain optimal upgrades for each weapon choice, so that too puts you in extra challenge mode. Generalized armor set, suboptimal weapon upgrade levels, and often fighting with weapons you are less skilled with or don't naturally suit your approach to hunting. It'll certainly shake things up a bit for many hunters. And of course, a little side effect of potentially making you a more skilled hunter, getting better with more of the weapons. It was a pretty fun challenge when I tried it, and it's another challenge run I will probably do again at some point in the future. So, there you go, 6 challenge rule sets that largely maintain the basic integrity of the flow and progression of the game without having to do, weird things like ignore core mechanics or only use side skills and whatnot, and which let you boost your engagement with or challenge by the game without sacrificing immersion. I think everything here still fits kind of diegetically, if you like, within the structure that feels like a reasonable roleplay choice, right? Some more than others, perhaps, but of course, these are hardly like, these are not tournament rules or anything. You can change up or combine or add or subtract whatever ideas here you like for your own choices. The idea is simply to allow you, an experienced player, to feel more engaged by, at the very least, the opening dozen hours of the game, which might otherwise feel a bit too easy to just glide through. Let me know down below what other ideas you have, or indeed other challenges you have tried out in previous games. Oh, and don't forget, please, go check out that other video for the newbies and offer those people some useful tips to help them get as hooked into this wonderful game as we are. Thanks for watching. I am Blunty. Thank you as always to the patrons, and I will catch you next time.